Thank you to our game show host, Scott Gibson. Thank you to our game show host, Jason Colano. Great job for putting that together. Guys, appreciate you very much. We're going to keep going, and I'm going to give you a little recap. So if you could get to the PowerPoint. This is our third meeting of 6 meetings. And so we are on our third meeting of 6 meetings. So tonight we're going to just I'm going to give a quick recap. If you could scroll down to our meeting times and dates, a couple slides down. And we've been through our demographics. Bob Templeton was fantastic and gave us all an eye-opening experience of all the demographics and all the growth that's coming our way. And then we've also been through the finances and debt presentations, so they did a great job of just giving us an overview of where we've been and a little bit about where we're at as a school district financially. Tonight we're really going to dig deep. Dr. Glenn's going to give some proposals here in just a few minutes, so I'm excited, and I know you're excited to hear some of the opportunities, some of the proposals that we're going to be looking at as we move forward. November 8th is our next meeting. We're going to review the architecture and kind of dig in a little bit deeper for what y'all discuss and decide tonight. Tonight we're going to kind of narrow our focus and allow our architects to put together some things that we can review. And then later on, December 6th, we're going to create a resolution. We're going to really say this is the direction that we're all going to agree upon moving forward. And then January 24th, we're looking at a board meeting to finalize this resolution and then all the things we're doing. The breakout sessions. Tonight we're not going to have a breakout session. We have had some breakout sessions. Again, it's not the schools that are represented, it's the titles underneath each one of the schools. And so tonight we're not going to be going through breakout sessions because we're going to be discussing in groups when you get your sandwich some of the pros and cons of each one of the proposals that Dr. Glenn presents to us tonight. And so when we come back on November 8th and on December 6th, we're going to have an opportunity, you're going to have an opportunity to hit one of these breakout sessions between 5 and 6 p.m. So it's going to be up to you if you would like. It's going to be totally on you to go and hit one of these breakout sessions between 5 and 6 o'clock before the general session at the next meetings. And so we will not be doing breakout sessions anymore during our 6 to 8 p.m. time frame, but beginning at 5 p.m. we will be available for you to come and just hear more about some of these areas that you may have missed. So if you have any questions about that, see us later on. Just a quick recap on the demographics. Bob Templeton, again, did a great job of presenting to us the growth and what we are facing in Granbury, ISD, and Hood County with all the growth. I'm going to focus on this top left one for just a moment. Because in 2010, the population, according to the 2010 census, was 48,000. Since then, we've had a 34.6% growth to up to 64,000, just over almost 65,000 for our estimated population. So just think for just a moment, if we reciprocate that 34% or 35% growth, which they're anticipating to be even more, we're looking at pushing almost 90,000 as a population. We're looking at pushing almost 90,000 folks as a district population. When I said that out loud to you the other day, I was kind of taken back because I came in 2003. Many of you have been here longer than that. But just to think 10 years ago, we were at 48,000. Think about where we're at right now. We're 64,000. Think about where we're going with almost 90,000. So there's some big decisions that we need to make tonight and as a group and really have those discussions to make sure every voice is being heard. You've seen this slide, and it's our capacities at the schools. Just again, we're at 7,700 students. We're well above 7,700 students, and that's the highest enrollment that Granbury ISD has ever had. And so you can see in the yellow boxes that campus will be at capacity during that year that it shows in that column. And when you go all the way out to 2031, actually go all the way out to 2029, our enrollment is going to be well above 10,000 students. So there's a lot of discussion, a lot of good things that we need to touch on, and really as a team, as a committee, do some serious long-range planning. Dr. Glenn will talk more about that in just a moment. Just want to hit on that historical tax rate that's been, we've done a great job. Our Board of Trustees has done a fantastic job in that last line in the top box. Granbury ISD's total tax rate has decreased 16 cents over the last 5 years. We can be very, very proud of that. And that puts us at the very bottom of our region as far as tax rates are concerned. And so that's very exciting. We're just above Glen Rose at the very bottom, and it's always good to get last place on a tax rate, right? And to think about it, if we did the same thing we did in 2013 with a 15-cent bond, we're still in the lower quartile of all the other school districts in our region. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting for us. And so we've got a lot of work to do tonight. And with that, I'm going to present Dr. Glenn. Come on up and give the proposals for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. So back when this started, well over a year ago, with just a conversation in the boardroom with some of our trustees and our administrative team, we talked about the idea of making Granbury an educational destination. And you've heard quite a few of us toss that phrase out. We know that Granbury is a residential destination, and it's certainly a tourist destination. But what does it mean to become an educational destination? A school district where people desire to move into your community because they know you have great schools. I really liked tonight's video. It showed 4 educators who all graduated from our district. And for those of you who don't know, we are the largest employer in Hood County. And every year we hire back educators that graduated from right here in GISD. And I wanted to show that video because I think it's important, because I know a lot of people in this room, you don't have kids in school and you don't have kids coming. Some of you have very young kids and they may see the fruits of whatever we decide to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be impacted by it. And it doesn't mean that the kids that are going to be educated in the school system won't be the ones that might be taking care of you. Or it might be your kids saying, you know what, I want to go back and put my kids in GISD because I had a great experience there. And in addition to just moving back into the community, it's a good job. I mean, we not only do we give back to the community in a variety of ways by serving the community, but the kids can come right out of college and they can make between $50,000 and $60,000 a year right out of college working for our school district. And that's awesome. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud that we hire in pirates and multi-generational pirates. You saw Overstreet and his daughter Courtney up there. And so both Joe and Courtney Hinojosa work right here in this building, and it's awesome that they're proud to be not only a part of this community, but proud to be a part of this district. And so as we push forward this idea of being an educational destination, for me it comes down to one thing, and it's being excellent in all areas. In everything we do, we want to be excellent. So whether we're talking about athletics, or whether we're talking about fine arts, or whether we're talking about academics, what are we doing to be the best we can be? And I think we do some incredible things here, but I definitely think there is room to get better. And certainly, as we start having the discussion about growth, it's a time to ask ourselves, what can we intentionally do better? And so, before we get into any of the building stuff, I think there are just some academic opportunities that have come out of this that I'd like to share with you. The first is this idea of a full-day pre-K. We know that 52% of the kids in our district are economically disadvantaged. That means that Texas considers them living below the poverty line. And specifically in Granbury, the problem with poverty is generational. It's not just that, and I'm not saying that we don't have different levels of poverty, you know, like maybe dad just lost his job and they're dealing with poverty in the moment. But what we do have here, what we know we have here, is we have generations. So mom lived here in Granbury and they didn't have money. Before that, grandma lived here, and then the child just says to themselves, there's no way out, so I'm just accepting in an apathetic manner the fact that I'm going to go to school, but I'm probably just going to get a dead-end job somewhere, and I'm going to live in the same trailer park that my mom and dad lived in. And we know that happens here. And if you don't believe it happens here, come see me afterwards and we can have real conversations about kids that we know struggle with it. And education will be the only key they have to unlock the door and to break that cycle. And so for us, how do we make sure that we can break the cycle? For us, it is starting as early as we can with kids. And so I know you hear a lot about it on the news, but I'll tell you, this commitment to starting with 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds began for us well over a year ago, before it ever got publicity on Fox News or CNN or anything like that. We knew that we needed to get our kids earlier because our kindergarten teachers were telling us, look, these kids are coming into our schools and they can't spell their name, they don't know their colors, they don't know shapes. We have social workers right now that are at Emma Robertson Early Childhood Academy, our pre-K center, if you didn't know that we had one. Our 4-year-old academy, we have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in our Early Childhood Academy. And we have social workers that work with their parents to help just kind of break that cycle. And so the investment in pre-K is real for us, and we believe that that's how we get those kids that right now are just crawling off the starting line. We get them up into a jog so that we can raise the bar for everybody down the road. Free dual credit and dual enrollment. If you had kids in high school last year, you benefited from this. Jimmy Dawson was our CTE director at the time. He was able to find money through CCMR. Our board of trustees approved it, and we piloted free dual credit for everybody, and it was a huge success. And that's not just the kids that are economically disadvantaged, that was every child. And that's something that we can do. That's a commitment we as a district can make ourselves an educational destination, something that sets us apart from every other district around us by saying, you know what, when you come to Granbury High School, if you want to get 30 hours or 60 hours or your associate's degree while you're there, you can do that through Weatherford College. You know what, we'll foot the bill. Now think about that for a second, because I have a kid at Tech, and you're talking about $25,000 a year that it saves me. If my child goes to Granbury High School, that's a reason I would want to go to GHS. Absolutely it is. And it's for all students. In addition to that, gateway courses at the middle school, that's something we currently do not offer. The state of Texas asked us to tell your kids when they hit 8th grade for them to choose a career, choose a pathway. And honestly, let's just call it what it is. We get more money if they choose a pathway. Right, Gibson? And so he will push kids to, hey, stay in your pathway, take your advanced courses. But that's hard on an 8th grader to make that decision. But if we can just spend a little bit of time with them at 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, educating them, they're more likely to make a better decision and to stay in those pathways when they hit high school. In addition to that, the district-wide reading initiative. There is no reason that in a fluent community like Granbury that we should have kids reading below the state average. There's absolutely no reason for that. And I'll tell you, I'm so proud of our curriculum department and what Stacy Brown is doing and Tricia Snoot today have been phenomenal at really digging deep in the data, spending time with the campus principals, looking at data. We have common assessments going on this week, trying to find out where our kids are at a very young age and then tracking them and being intentional about putting systems in place to help improve academic scores across every level. But it has to be an intentional initiative by the community. And then finally, parent choice. This is something I'm big on. And you hear this all the time, and I will tell you that I am pro school choice. If someone wants to go to a charter school or a private school, that is absolutely fine with me. Every parent needs to make that decision for their child. My job, and the job of every administrator and educator in this room, is to make the public school here in Granbury the best option for your kids. That is our job. And so within that, what we want to do is we want to be able to offer, I don't think we can do it just across the board, anyone goes wherever they want, but we can certainly offer choices very similar to what we did at Mambrino as a STEAM academy, but we can offer multiple choices to every elementary zone so that parents have the ability to pick the elementary they want to go to when there is capacity there. As you know, we do not have capacity at our elementary schools right now, so we turn away a lot of transfers. But if parents have the opportunity to choose schools that have room available, then that only strengthens us as a district. It creates a partnership between the parent and the school. So as we get into the proposals, we really sat down, and I'll tell you, the first two proposals, when this began, I was thinking, if either of these passed, that would be a huge win for our community. And so let me start with the first one, just based on the feedback we have received. We talked about a new elementary. The new elementary would be about 700 students. That is comparable to Bronner and Oakwoods. The Board of Trustees and the school district actually have selected a property over in Saratoga. We own property behind the YMCA. and there is roughly, oh gosh, I guess with build out, I'd have to look at Bob's presentation, but I think they have about 600 homes in there now, so it creates a nice little neighborhood school there in Saratoga. But it would be really close to AES, but again, with a thoroughfare that connects James Road to Saratoga, it makes sense to look at that area. We would also need to renovate our current elementary campuses. The last time this community invested in an elementary school was 1995, and that was Mount Rhino. And so if we're going to put a new elementary on the ground, it only makes sense that we would go back to our other elementary schools and make some sort of investment in those buildings so that the kids that were being educated there, we're seeing an upgrade to their facilities as well. The JROTC, we've had this conversation over and over again, but they continue to struggle outgrowing their space. And as you guys know, it's one of our flagship programs. I love to brag that the average public school in the United States sends a kid to a military academy once every 7 years. In GISD, we send a student to a military academy about 1.3 per year. That's incredible. And I believe right now, all 5 service academies, so you have Annapolis, West Point, Air Force Academy, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marines. There is a GISD graduate at all 5 of those academies. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. Not many school districts can say that, and it's a credit to what the colonel and first sergeant do. But making an investment in their program so that they can continue to grow. Right now, our JROTC is larger than Tarleton's Corps of Cadets. And so if we're going to continue to grow and allow these guys to flourish with the nationally ranked program they have, we need to consider investing in a facility. And yes, it is a dual purpose facility. We're looking at something that can be used on the out at the stadium, so band could use it, football could use it, JROTC could use it. We want kids in it all of the time. And so, as Coach Cheesy would say, we put our home fans in the sun right now, and so the concept is very similar to what Tarleton did a few years ago. They essentially raised their visitor bleachers and they built up new home stands. And so you create the new press box and then you put the CTE within it, and so that it's used all the time. The aviation space, as you guys know, I think are we on our 3rd or 4th airplane? So we're building our 4th airplane right now, and in addition to that, we're starting our pilots program so kids can get their pilot's license while they're in school. And the room that our aviation program uses to build those airplanes is smaller than some of our science labs. But they continue to do it. But if they're going to continue to do it at a high level, we've got to invest in that program. One program that we don't have, that we all desperately want to see, is a construction science program. Again, what are we doing? What are we doing to teach kids skills that we know that this state and this county and this city need? You know, electricians, plumbers, HVAC. Those are things that we can teach and work with local builders here right now. There are programs across the state where other schools are doing that. We do not have that program. We have an excellent CTE program, but that's one area that we're missing that we'd like to see added, because we do not have space to add it right now. And then finally, the idea of a transportation department or remote hub. And so essentially what I'm talking about is putting a second bus barn on the north end of town to help ease some of the gridlock that you see on 377 and 144 when every bus leaves our bus yard at the same time. And I'm going to get more in depth with this, but you guys know, today we didn't have school and you probably felt it on the roads. Tomorrow we will have school and you will feel it on the roads. There's a huge impact on schools in session. So again, just looking at this, we put this chart together and you'll see it all night tonight. Right now we have one early childhood academy. This proposal 1 would add a 6th elementary school. Nothing would happen at the junior high or high school levels under the first proposal. So it's really focused and centered on the CTE improvements, the JROTC press box facility, and the elementary school. As we move to proposal 2, it includes everything in proposal 1, but we added a couple of other things. One is drive loops for traffic control. Again, we know that we need to try and pull some of our own traffic off the roads. And so if we can take that traffic, pull it off the roads and put it on GISD property, that's a win for our community. In addition to that, this building, we know we're getting close to capacity at the high school. That was reflected in the survey earlier. We could add a wing for 400 students. So similar to what we did at Crossland, we can come up with like a 20 classroom wing that would expand and give us some more classroom space. In addition to that, we would look at athletic upgrades. No one likes talking about athletics, but I will tell you that on Friday, we send our snapshot into UIL. We will be a 5A district this year because our senior class is 405 students. They are going to graduate. We're going to bring in a class of 600, which is going to put us plus 200. And the next time we do alignment in 2 years, this will be a 6A school district. And as a 6A school district, at some point, we've got to make a commitment to upgrading or improving or maintaining our athletic fields. The pavilion was built in 2000. The turf has never been changed in there. 21 years that turf has remained the same. It's supposed to be changed 8 to 10 years. It's been there for 21 years. So we've got to make a commitment to those things. And they're not cheap. And then looking into our STARS facility as we try and relocate the big brand STARS. Within this proposal, we would try and pull STARS out of the old elementary Weatherford College building. And I'm going to talk more about that facility specifically later on, but as you know, STARS and BTC, so our disciplinary facility, they are located in the same building, which is where Weatherford College is. And then, so as we look at this proposal, again, it adds us another elementary school, and then you see GHS highlighted there because we're going to add additional capacity back to GHS, plus the CTE upgrades, plus the infrastructure upgrades, plus some of the athletic upgrades, which would be on a separate project. So, I'll be honest with you, if we had gotten this 4 months ago, I thought, wow, that would be just a dream if we could get our community to buy into Prop 2. And I felt pretty good about it. The idea of a high school, which I know just hold very well in here, honestly, it scared me to death. I built 2 other high schools in 2 other communities, and it's always tedious and it's always controversial, and it's especially controversial in a community where in 2013 you just passed a bond to renovate the high school that we sit in tonight. Before this process began, our board and some of our administrators, we did a book study, and the book is actually by Mark Batterson. It's called Chase the Lion. And I'll sum it up for you. It says, if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough. And I'll tell you, the idea of building a high school, it scares me. It scares me a little bit because it would be awesome for our community in a lot of ways. And I think some of you in this room that are dads and parents that have been here a long time, it's not the first time that the district has had conversations about a high school up in the Acton area on the north end of town. But personally, I know that the next proposal, it's the most expensive proposal by far. And I think everyone in this room realizes that. And at our next meeting, Huckabee will actually bring numbers to it if we decide we want to go down that route. And I was not prepared to go down this route, but there is a member of the long-range planning committee, because in addition to the administration and the board doing a book study, I sent 10 individuals a copy of the book and just said, hey, want you to be a part of the process, want you to pray for us during the process, and just wanted to let them know what we were going to be dealing with. And I kind of off the cuff talked about the idea of a high school and how I didn't know if it really could be a reality. And that person threw it back kind of in my lap. He said, what about chasing the line? What about dreaming big? And so I will tell you, this next proposal is a big dream. And it's going to take a lot of education if this is the direction we move for our community to understand what we're trying to accomplish here. And so it's pretty simple. It's really a 4 for 1. You build one facility and you end up getting 4 in return. So it's a new high school for 3,500 students. It comes complete with all new CTE, all new athletic facilities. And in addition, we still have elementaries that have to be renovated, so it's going to have to include that. And it would be the conversion of the current building that we're in to a new 6 through 8 junior high, and in the conversion of AMS and a GMS in the elementary schools. So here's one way that could look. The first is that Emma Robertson stays online as an early childhood facility. AMS comes online as an elementary school. Keep in mind, the location of AMS is not that far from where we would be building a new elementary school. And then in addition to that, GMS could theoretically become a 6th grade center, and this building could serve as a 7th and 8th grade center. It would be one junior high, which means one football team, but it also means that we can invest in golf, we can invest in tennis, we can invest in JROTC, we can invest in culinary, and offer a much broader palette for our kids. You had a chance to see Little Shop of Horrors this weekend. Our musical theater program did an incredible job. Imagine if our theater program at the junior high level had this facility. And then again, a new high school and Stars, again, would be removed from their current facility and housed in the new location. And then here's the other alternative. We have 2 early childhood facilities. Knowing that Emma Robertson is going to reach capacity in 2028, especially if we allow all 4-year-olds to attend, you take Bacchus and you allow them to feed 3 elementary schools each. AMS and GMS both come online as elementary schools that house about 1,000 kids, just over 1,000 kids. So roughly the size of AES, which is a big elementary. The middle school, 6 through 8, would be here. So it would be all 6 through 8 here. 6th graders don't move a whole lot. They would likely be isolated as much as possible with a crossing wing, and then 7th and 8th would take up the rest of the building, and then you would build a new high school with Stars. And so, as we look at enrollment capacities, if we do nothing, then in 2026, we're going to be dealing with portable buildings at the elementary, which we already are, and more are coming on the way. Middle school, high school, 2028 will be in the same situation, adding portable buildings. Proposal 1 only addresses the elementary, so it does push out our elementary date for capacity, but does not change high school or middle school. Proposal 2 addresses the elementary date, pushing it out to 2030, and it gets your high school out to about 2031. And then proposal 3 and 4 goes well beyond what our demographer presented, but looking at their growth options, we estimate about 2034 to 2037 addressing the options. But again, doing that is also the most expensive option out of the 3. It always comes up, why doesn't the school just save money and spend fund balance money? I can tell you, in addition to having an extremely low tax rate, our trustees have done a great job of maintaining a very healthy fund balance. This year we'll have over $25 million in our fund balance. The board, has put aside money for school buses, technology, HVAC, and roof replacements, and also additional land sites. And that money has been, I think every year they essentially adopt when they look at the audit and they adopt a budget, there's always monies that we designate for future construction. I can tell you school buses, technology, HVAC, and roofs, if you went to Mr. Whitefield's presentation outside, his small group, you know that just those 4 items is about $14 million that we're going to have to cover the cost of. And that doesn't mention not to mention the cost of land in addition to that. So, because the community is growing, and we are not going to be able to stop the growth coming in, but we can certainly determine how we grow and where we want to grow. And then let me just finish with this, and then I'll take a few questions. There are some things that we can do better as far as dealing with our community. The first is our athletic field usage and our gym usage. We have a lot of elementary gyms, junior high gyms. If we do any one of these proposals, that space is only going to increase. And I see too many of my friends, and I see too many of our young parents that are traveling to Mansfield and to Fort Worth all the time to play games. And I got to ask myself, how much better would our athletic programs be if we invested in those kids at a young age and didn't require their parents on a Saturday or on a Sunday to miss church because they got to drive to Louisville to go play games. And so we've got to be more open and have conversations about how we get young people on our field and into our facilities at a reasonable rate, without just opening it up to everybody. That has to be a real conversation. And as we expand, that's a conversation that I know our trustees are willing to have. In addition to that, Weatherford College wants to expand too. They are in the old elementary school. They want to be able to offer phlebotomy. They want to offer CNA certifications. They want to offer HVAC certifications, certified welding certificates, in addition to all the core curriculum. But they can't do that in the building they're in, so they have asked, hey, is there any way we could come into the high school and work through the high school for classes? Maybe. That's something worth talking about. And so earlier I told you we're trying to get out of stars. So as we talk about being proactive in infrastructure and being a good steward and working with the city and the county, the Hood County Appraisal District, we know that if you read the article, Jack Wilson has been working with HCAD and our board president, Mark Jackson, to try and get DPS here. For those of you who don't know how HCAD is funded, 62%, so 62 cents of every dollar they spend for anything comes from GISD. It comes directly from our budget to them. Another 24% comes from the county. So that's 86%. So 86 cents of every dollar is the school district in the county. If you want to throw the city in, it goes up to 93 cents. So 93 cents of every dollar spent at HCAD comes directly from those three entities. A few years ago, they went out to buy a piece of land. It was going to cost, I think, a little over $1 million. $1 million piece of property. That means GISD would have to cut a check for $620,000. So it makes sense that we would want to be involved in a conversation when we're talking about HCAD. And so when Mr. Jackson, who is on the HCAD board, and Jack Wilson, when they're having conversations about, hey, are we going to move HCAD, we definitely want to get Judge Massengill and the county and the school and the city all involved in these conversations, because we're all going to be impacted financially by it. And if we can figure out a way to move HCAD into a newer building, and at the same time, as we're moving them into a newer building, maybe get a full-service DPS station back here in Granbury, that they would pay a lease back to us that would help pay back all three entities for the cost of the building over time. That seems like a win-win-win. And so those are conversations we're having. And the reason the school is involved is because we have land on the north end of the county, and we can swap that land for the current HCAD building. Now, why would we do that? Because we know that we have BTC and we have STARS together in the Weatherford College building. If there's a way we can pull BTC out and maybe put them in that building next to the high school, then that helps STARS. Maybe that takes some of that negative rub off STARS. We're like, well, that's just the building where all the bad kids go, because that's not true. Some of those kids just fell through the cracks and they're working hard to get a diploma, and we just kind of have a negative perception of what BTC STARS really is. And so if we could leverage something good for the appraisal district, something good for the county, getting the DPS office here, and we can be good financial stewards, it's worth having the conversation. Is it going to happen? It requires all entities to approve it. Are the conversations taking place? Absolutely. And so under the last two proposals, we could actually get Weatherford College and STARS, in addition to BTC, out of the Weatherford, out of the old elementary Weatherford College building as well. So you're thinking to yourself, why would we empty that building? So STARS now gets to relocate into a new upgraded facility. HCAD is upgraded. BTC is moved out. Weatherford College is offering more certifications through the high school. What happens to that building? I also serve on the Child Advocacy Center board, and right now, and we have a representative here, they are trying to find a facility because they want to bring the Child Advocacy Center, the Rainbow Room, and CPS all under one roof, so they can better serve the kids that really need it the most, the ones that are abused. And so the reason I share this with you is because I believe that in order to be an educational destination, in order to be a district of excellence, there has to be synergy in the school district, the county, and the city, working together with our community partners. and not making decisions out there all by ourselves, like, hey, you know what, let's just go build a new high school because that's best for us. We're having conversations across the board with everybody in this community to see how what we do affects what happens with other entities. And I can't say enough about our judge who's with us here tonight. He has been just gracious in working with GISD. We would not have stayed open through the pandemic if it weren't for him. And our new mayor, from the moment that he hit his office over there, he called me and invited me over to his office, and he said, you know what, Granbury, the city of Granbury wants to be involved with the school. The last 2 meetings, the only reason he has missed is because they had a city council meeting same night. So, but he definitely wants to be involved, and he's just been very gracious in dealing with us. And so, being a good community partner is important to us as well. And so with that, I will answer any questions you have.
Does the building, like, the apartments that can't open because of all the sewer issues or whatever, is that going to affect us building?
Absolutely. There is nobody that wants the sewer moratorium worked out more than the ISD. Because whatever we build, we're going to have a conversation about utilities. So we again, talking about good working relationships and communication, we want to keep those lines open with the city and the county.
Would we take priority over housing developments, or do you know?
I would hope so, but that would be. I would think our city council would give us priority. And again, we're looking at 2025, so it's. I think some people they think when a bond is passed in May, you're 4 to 5 months down, and then you open a new facility. Again, anything that happens in May, construction has been delayed, construction prices are up. We're looking at a fall of 2025 opening for whatever we decide to do, and the numbers are going to change a lot by then. We're going to grow a lot by 2025. Again, we're going to be over 8,000 kids next year. Every year we're hitting high points for attendance and enrollment. I know there have to be questions. A lot of information. But, yes.
So, touching back on the high school proposal, there was a new high school built. That would be the primary high school, and this would no longer be a high school.
That is correct. So we're still talking about a one high school community. Now I will say this, I try as I think through building projects to make sure that we're not doing anything that handcuffs decisions that want to be made 20 years down the road. This building was built in 1984, by the way, and it's pretty remarkable how long these facilities last and they're used. It's been renovated multiple times since then, but 1984. So if we're talking about another high school, yeah, I would think that the conversation of a second high school, which has come up a lot, operationally, we could not afford that. Our M&O budget wouldn't allow us to have 2 high school principals, 2 football teams, 2 bands. I mean, that is too much money. 83% of our budget every year is payroll, and a high school would be the largest chunk of that. So that doesn't mean that one day the community may not say, hey, you know what, it's time to have a second high school. And I would think at that point, we would have positioned ourselves, and I'm going to back up because I'm probably getting too deep, but I think it's worth just being as transparent as possible on this. Under a scenario like that, if you put all of your elementaries back online, Eric, you could take the new GHS north of town, so we'll call it Acton High School, and this building right here, Granbury High School. You could convert the GMS and AMS back into middle schools, and then your elementaries would feed smaller junior highs and smaller high schools. That is probably 15 to 20 years out, if I were guessing. That conversation really starts around 15,000 kids. Or you just keep adding and making your high school bigger and bigger and bigger, like an Allen. But at 15,000 kids, that's two schools roughly the same size that we have now. We're at 77.
Does the district already own the land for a new high school?
The district owns 77 acres in Saratoga. Likely, the trustees would put together a committee to look at properties, and they would review alternative properties. We'd prefer to have about 100 to 120 acres.
Jeremy, what's the most efficient size for a high school? 3,000 kids? Where do you need some limit of making?
Yeah, so the question is, what's the most efficient size for a high school? In Allen, their high school is over 7,000 kids, and they would say it's very efficient. And I've walked through it. It feels like a small college when you're at Allen. I know Midlothian split when they were probably at about 8,000 kids, so not much bigger than we are now. They decided to split, and they split with a smaller high school, Heritage High School, and Midlothian High School stayed bigger because they didn't want the high schools competing against one another. But also Midlothian's growth projections over a 10-year period showed them nearly doubling in size.
How do you project your M&O budget based on the number of facilities you have?
So we projected off of values, and then we projected off of attendance.
What does it cost to keep, you talked about your fund of $25 million. What does it cost to keep this high school going? And if we have this would be a very, very large junior high. How does that fund get depleted when you have to pay for two high schools to be maintained of this size?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So this would be a huge junior high that's very expensive to maintain. How does that deplete the fund?
No, I mean everything that we're talking about. If you bring both junior highs in here, again, you're not adding personnel because we're already staffing the same number of kids right now.
Facility wise.
Okay, so
HVAC and roofs, you have 25 million, you're saying it costs 14
So-
million dollars. Now you're keeping two high schools going, but one of them's a junior high. That's a really large junior high with an auditorium that most people don't have, and a football field that's the size of a high school.
yeah, good question. And so I'll say this: when we built Waxahachie High School, which was built for about 3,300 kids, the cost estimate that we used for added utility costs, and we did have to add some staff, but it was limited because it was similar to this program. But it was right around $300,000 to $400,000 a year. So that has to be absorbed within the M&O budget. And so where you're pulling that money from is you're pulling that money from your enrollment increase. So, but keep in mind that last year the district put back right at $2 million, and we'll put back right at $4 million this year. Although we are receiving quite a bit of ESSER funding that we're able to reallocate some of our resources. But in a typical year, we'll put back $1 million pretty easily.
Glenn, talk to me on the goal proposal, traffic patterns. What does that do, putting traffic onto James Road with two elementaries?
So let me see if I can find it. So in this option here, we're still going to have to make renovations, likely put a loop at Oakwoods. I don't see many changes to the traffic patterns at Mambrino. GMS and AMS, obviously they have loops around them already, so that's going to pull traffic at the elementary levels off compared to what we see at like an AES or a Bronner, where they don't have there's a small loop around Bronner, but like Emma, we know that it's kind of backed up in there. So yeah, and so taking all the high school traffic north of town obviously is going to create quite a bit of relief. But keep in mind the times that we dismiss high school, our high school times, our junior high times, and our elementary times are all different. So we feel like it'll be staggered better. So, but traffic should flow better around the campuses, just because they're large right now. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but at least there's infrastructure in place. And I will say this, and again, I'm great with proposal 1, and I'm great with walking in that room and coming up with proposal 4. But under this plan right here, the day that AMS and GMS open as elementary schools, they're nicer than any elementary school we have currently in our district. And the day this facility opens as a junior high, it's nicer than both AMS and GMS. And so when you talk about giving your kids the best, the conversation always goes toward tax rate and cost, but I think there has to be a conversation about investment too, and investing in our kids and investing in our community. And yes, that means property values will go up, and for those of us that want to stay in our houses forever, that is not necessarily a great thing. But for anybody looking to have equity in their home, I would much rather be in a community where my property value is growing than I drove to Lubbock last week. I can tell you there are a lot of towns that are dying and their property values are not going that direction. So it is good to be in a community where there is value.
Under the goal of verbal options, are the elementary still going to need their voice?
Yes. Yeah. We want to offer under any scenario. We want to, as soon as we have capacity available, we want to offer parents choice. And I'll say this, and it's the truth, and some of you are thinking it, but the idea of one junior high, we do have equity issues here and perception issues with some of our campuses. And I'll just be honest with you, on this plan, it was strategically thought out because we do have a problem with people that live in the Bacchus zone wanting to send their kids to Bacchus. Now, if it's free pre-K, I'm thinking some people are going to be in on that. And GMS and AMS, that divide, that perception we have between the two campuses, even though, we have done some awesome things academically over the last 3 years at GMS, there still seems to be like a negative connotation with it. And we want to erase that. We want people to be all in, to be pirates when they hit 6th grade.
What programs would you implement now? You're wanting parent choice, but what programs would you put to differentiate programs that are?
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily talking about let's make this a STEAM academy and this a fine arts academy and this a leadership academy. That's a possibility. I'm just saying with open enrollment, you have capacity available and you allow those schools to fill to a certain capacity. So parents can just say, you know what, I know that I live over by Membrino, but I work in Fort Worth. It's just easier for me to take my kids to Acton because when I'm coming back home, I can pick them up there. Right now, we would not allow that. Under a new system, we wouldn't. Again, there's just not the capacity to allow it right now. We're doing everything we can to beg parents to transfer their kids out to Membrino because there's space out there. Probably a lot more questions. I'm going to hang out in here and answer some, but we want to walk you guys out there to have a little more in-depth discussion. It's going to look different tonight. There's only 5 stations out there. Pick one of the 5 stations. We'll have a group leader. We've got dinner out there. We're going to eat pretty quick, get into our discussion groups, and then we're going to bring it all back together and wrap it up pretty clean and finish out with Paul Thompson at Huckabee, who is going to get input from you guys on what you need to know from him at our next meeting. So I'm going to hang out in here for a few minutes for any of you that want to just ask me a direct question. Yeah, and again, if there is anything you need to say, please say it. And I'm thick-skinned, you can say, all those ideas are terrible, start over. I'm good with that. So, but please don't leave here tonight without giving us your input. We need to know how you feel and what you're thinking.